So Hyperon Experience was heavily influenced by the things we saw live. I mean, I went to a lot of raves and I saw them all, from Shades of Rhythm to Rhythm Section to Enjoy, who were the absolute dons. I mean, these guys, their music was amazing. Really, really loved it. So we made the assumption that we would go live as well, which was really, really fun. In fact, we'd pack up the entire studio. And what made me laugh was I picked up an old trick of a senile grandfather of mine who used to walk around with plastic carrier bags. Quite a character. But it seemed quite a convenient way to do it. So we'd put all the MIDI leads into one carrier bag, all the audio leads into another carrier bag, all the power leads into another carrier bag, which was really quite cool. They were supermarket bags, so they'd just sit in between all the equipment and the keyboard stands. And we'd go on stage with 5 stands of equipment. The bulk of it in the centre was the 2 Alesis MMT8 sequencers. We had 2, one was for the drums and one was for the music. And that would go through a data disk which would store all the memory down to the Akai and a Boss SE50 effects unit. And then outside of that would come like the Junos and the Korg M1 and an Alesis digital synths, which was rubbish. Juno 6, we had a 303, a 202, 101, and loads of little bits of weird tricks and stuff, and a little mixing desk and stuff like that. And so we'd do the whole thing live. Literally, it would be sequenced live on stage, and me and Danny would play little bits or chop bits in and out. So most of the time was spent actually modulating synthesizers to make them sound how they should do. But we came up with the idea that we would need uniforms, and Danny said, "Leave it with me. I'll sort it out. I've got an idea." "Oh, what's your idea, Danny?" "Oh, I'm going to do these uniforms here. They're going to be red, but they're going to have black piping, and we're going to have HE embossed on the front." I went, "Wicked, Dan. You sort that out." I gave him some money, and he went away, and he came back, and he had these red uniforms, and they were red trousers with a red top, long sleeve red top, and he'd stitched in all the black beads, and he'd sprayed on this stencil of Hyperon Experience. And he also had these matching hats, which were a little bit like sailor caps with a short peak and a little raise, which came back. And yeah, it kind of looked cool. We made up our minds that we would wear them. But when we got on stage, under the stage lights, they were pink. They weren't red, they were pink. They were a cerise pink. I don't know, and we had cerise pink with HE written across these stupid sailor hats. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I thought, yeah, kind of look good on paper, but I think we'll leave them uniforms for the moment. And yeah, we wore them once. We wore them once at the, I think it was, I can't even remember, was it Tiffany's, was it Ocean Rooms in Gorson? I can't remember. I can remember wearing them and thinking, this is wrong with a capital W, this is wrong. I'm out of this totally. And eventually Moving Shadow got loads of merchandise and we just wore Moving Shadow on stage. But yeah, for some reason we went on stage looking just about as wrong as you can. So when Hyperon started, we made a reasonable amount of noise in the scene. We had some interest from people who wanted to manage us. One guy was an absolute shyster. I can't remember his name, but I remember him turning up and saying, "Yeah, I'll manage you boys." Yeah, BMW and loads of girls with him. "Yeah, I'm going to manage you boys, don't you worry. What I want is a retainer. I want you to pay me £125 a month as a retainer, and then I'll get you loads of work." And I was like, £125 a month, mate? I ain't making that from music. You know, I always felt agents take a percentage, and he wanted me to pay him to be my manager. And I was like, no. I can remember there being a very difficult conversation where I obviously phoned him while he was going somewhere and he had a car full of people. And I was trying to tell him very politely that I didn't want to be involved with him. In fact, I think he booked us for a gig and we went down to some gig in Braintree and we did a set for him and then we spoke about it. But when he spoke about us paying him, I thought, get stuffed. And then we went, I can't remember Prodigy's manager, but he was down at Southend and we went down to see him as well. And yeah, he liked our music and it was pretty good, but you remember Prodigy was crossover and Hyperon wasn't quite crossover, so I can understand that as a manager we didn't appeal so much. However, as Hyperon Experience, I do think we had an influence because Prodigy's first album was called The Prodigy Experience and it wasn't called that before. So the names of the EP, the first, so we did this EP, and you think about the first EP and the bringing together of many different styles, wasn't it? From the Frightener to 80 Anthem to Watch Us Now, and another Rave. These were 4 different genres within one genre which hadn't yet been defined. So when we spoke about what we should call the EP, it seemed to follow that we should call it Fun for the Family because of all the different styles that were involved. And then the second EP was called Keep It in the Family. which obviously it's an extension in it. So the first one was Fun for the Family, the next EP, we're going to keep it in the family. It seemed to naturally progress. And then, what was the third one? Was it The Family We Never Had, or was it Death in the Family? I think, anyway, so The Family We Never Had was a sample from Ice-T. There was an Ice-T album called Power, and I think there's a lyric on there or a sample that went, The Family We Never Had. There is a definite description in Danny and I's upbringing which can reference that, but I do not wish to discuss it now. But The Family We Never Had, it was an unfortunate title because it kind of meant something whilst being a cheeky sample. But my mother did mention to my sister, she said, "Oh, is that to do with me?" I thought, I'm a little bit worried that I might have upset my mother. And then the last, it wasn't designed to upset my mother, obviously. The last one was called Death in the Family, spelt to lose your hearing. Bracketed, a sad title for an otherwise splendid EP. Total wank, you know. But Death in the Family, you know, it's just, we just kept the family name. It just seemed fun to keep doing it like that. Yeah. So there's no real meaning in it. It's just an unfortunate something that we continued. So the discussion now is the influence of Hyper on other people. I have discussed this with a few people. The Facebook page has given me a lot of feedback. People have said, "Oh my God, you guys were such an influence on what I did then, what I do now. This is such a, you know, I didn't know this at the time. We just made the music. I wasn't conscious of any influences. I was only conscious of the influences that were affecting me." It's nice. It's very flattering. I heard Orbital liked one of our tunes called Half Stepper. I mean, that's terribly impressive. I know The Prodigy, I spoke to Liam a few times and he was like, really intense about some of the tunes that we made, which was really odd because it was like The Prodigy telling me how he liked my tunes, and I'm like, "Mate, you're The Prodigy." Do you know what I mean? Fucking Don, innit? And like, so I was never directly informed of the influences. However, I knew that some people had sampled us and there were ideas that we did, but it's like going back to, I told you about, it doesn't matter what you have, you're going to make your tunes, whether you have my samples or not. And Hyperon made Hyperon tunes. Now, Hyperon was me and Danny Demir, and we made those crazy tunes at the time, and they were influenced by the barrage of rave that we went through. But as far as influencing other people, no one ever told me directly until 20 years later. You know, when they said, "Oh man, you did this, and that made me do that." You know, so I was like, "Did I?" I wasn't totally sure what I'd done. I'm ever so sorry. So yeah, that was good. It's nice. It's nice. It's always nice to be flattered. It's very awkward for me because that's not why I do it. I do it for the music, a little bit of the cliche. But for someone to tell me, someone established who's successful to tell me they're influenced by some of the stuff they've done, that's a bit freaky. Do you know what I mean? That's a bit freaky. Okay, so this is slightly off topic. This is Easy Rollers. We did a track called Retro. A couple of things about that tune. First of all, me and Jay battled on this tune because I'd done a minor chord intro to this tune. It was directly influenced by a night that happened that Fabio and Bookham ran in opposite the Astoria. I think it was called the Milk Bar or the Mars Bar. It kept changing names, and it was Wednesday night. And as far as I can say, it was a youth club. When I was working in a factory, I'd be at work at 8 and I'd be hammered by 3:30 in the morning, and it would take turns taking piss, and Jay or me would drive home and go to work in the morning. But I was down there one night and I heard this tune, and it broke down to this really nice piano playing, a few minor chords with this percussion. But when this tune dropped, it was appalling, and I thought, I could rewrite that better. So I went home and I rewrote it. And when I went to the job, Jay said, "We've got to change it, we've got to change it. Go to a major chord." And I was going, no, we started in the minor, I'm not switching to a major. He goes, no, switch to a major. I said, you can't switch from minor to major. And we battled, because I'd done this beautiful intro, which was all getting ready to drop, and he wanted to change to a major, which he eventually succeeded in doing, you know, much against my will. And we also got an astonishing saxophonist, a guy called Joe Vitesi. And I know that much about music, believe me, I can't even just spiders walking on a page as far as music notation is. And this guy goes, "Yeah, boys, I'll tell you what I do, boys. I do you some suspended fourths." Yeah, whatever. So he came out of this minor intro into this suspended fourth over these majors, which I don't even know what that means. Basically, it doesn't sound like anything ever resolves itself. And then we come across this Derek May sample, how he was talking about old school. And the sample goes like this. It goes, I edited it. Derek May actually stuttered in the actual sample, but the sample finishes up like this. It goes, it's sad, in the 1990s we still have to go the same bullshit route that other artists have had to go to get accepted. If it wasn't for the little guys in the small cities making music, this would never have happened. You know, some of them would never make a dime. Some of them would be poor and die alone. But in the process, they've been the true renegades, and the true rebels always walk alone anyway. And then in comes Joe Vitessi's saxophone. But Derek May, when he said it, actually stuttered. And he goes, it's sad. In the 1990s, and I edited all those out in the acolytes and made up this new thing. I also, because it came off VHS tape, we taped off some program. It had loads and loads of hiss, and I'd worked really hard removing this hiss. We had no waves, hiss reduction, and nothing like that. I had to do it all with EQ and compression. So the more compression, the more EQ I had to add. And eventually when someone else came to sample that tune, I gave them the raw samples rather than what I'd processed, and they left the hiss in. The lazy bastards, do you know what I mean? I worked all that hard to get rid of it, gave them the original sample and I left it in. But there we go, yeah. That was good. So the Derek May sample talks about the struggle of musicians attempting to do stuff and not get recognised. No, that didn't define me. I didn't make music to get recognised. That's when Derek spoke about how they're not getting recognised for what they're doing. I think that took away from what they were doing, because when I made music, I was making music because I had to. I couldn't not do it. You know, like I've mentioned, it hurts when I don't, and it hurts even more when I do. So I had to keep on making music. So it really wasn't about the recognition for me. I've met these people and they annoy me. The people who go, I've got one tune out, my nose is going high and I'm not talking to you. Really pisses me off because it has no real meaning. The meaning is in the music, and I've since learned that personality is no precursor to success, and you can meet some real dickheads who have made a couple of good tunes and just think, and I even know of an example of someone who told me, yeah, I've had a track out on Moving Shadow, I told my parents they shouldn't treat me any differently. What? Why would you be treated differently? From what? From the bloke whose arse they were wiping all their lives? What would you be different about you? You've made a tune, it's a job. Standing on stage, the adulation, it's not why I do it, it's not why I'm there. I make music because there are more things to discover. So recently I got asked to do a Hyperon Experience set. This was 91 to 94. Now, I was DJing in the late 80s, but when I started with Hyperon, I kind of stopped the DJing because all my money went on equipment rather than records. And Jay, the other Easy Roller, he carried on doing the DJing. We were DJing together, blah, blah, blah. So I had to do this set. Now, what I could have done is gone around Jay's house and record all the stuff. But what I actually did was just put a post on Facebook and say, look, send me 91 to 94. So I picked up about 150 early hardcore tunes, and I went through and I wrote out all the tempos so I could come up with some sort of mix and do it. But the tunes that I played and really enjoyed playing, I played a lot of Hyperon tunes. I played the Frightener. I even introduced it. I played the Frightener, I played Magica, I played Lords. Didn't play Thunder Grip. Feel Good, that Omni Trio, whatever it is, I can't remember. Playing with Knives, didn't play that. Project One. Baptized by Dub, Terminator. You've got Time Bomb here. Dark Rider, Session 1. I don't even know what these tunes are. Champion Sound, the very first version of that was good. The Bouncer. Remember the Bouncer? Your name's not down, you're not coming in. That was 133 beats per minute. You know, Living in Darkness was 138 beats per minute. When you get to the tunes like Magica was 152, Laws was 160 beats per minute, you know. So when you look at the actual, it was mad. Like the sound of the underground. The sound of the underground, what a tune. The hype to the tune, Chopper, great tune. That Chopper was 160. So in that period from 91 to 94, there was a tempo switch from the mid-20s up to the high 60s, or 160s, so mid-120s. Mr. Kirk's Nightmare was 124 beats per minute. And that was 91, do you know what I mean? Music Takes Control, 144 beats per minute. So what I did, I split the set up into 3 different tempos. And as I sort of the early 130s, and then I just chop mixed into the early 145 beats per minute, then chop mixed into 155. So yeah, I also I also consider what I do on stage to be right, so I use the microphone a lot. So I chat to people as I'm playing music. I'm not an MC, I just talk to them. Tell them about the music that I'm playing and stuff like that. Why not? People love all that stuff. Mystic Steppers, come on. Another track, Take It Easy. So yeah, I played all the Rush, Defender. Do you remember that bass? Bass. I didn't actually play that one because I felt it didn't slip in. It was quite dark and rolling. Although I can remember years ago dancing to it and thinking, oh, best tune in the world. But I chose not to play it myself. Drop Ecstasy, that was quite a good rate. Exterminate, Head in the Clouds. I just want to be with my head in the clouds. Uplifting, great tune. I love that. I think I might have even played that last. I can't remember. I think I ran out of time. And plus, I played after. I was a little bit worried because I played after Top Buzz, and I thought, oh, Top Buzz is going to play my set. It's a hardcore night. Everyone's going to play every tune I played. But they played pretty hard. I got to admit, they played a lot of rolling tunes which were a little bit more accessible now. Whereas I played all the chopped up crazy shit that I just loved hearing years ago, which worked quite well. In fact, I'm quite surprised at how well tunes like Magical went down on that night, because it was good. There were some guys who were proper into it. I can't remember who I played for. I'm ever so sorry. I've done so many DJ gigs. But there was quite a few ages. Mostly it was 33 down, like some uber trendy student types who were like dressed in the uniform of students, which is no uniform. But they still loved it. And I'm really quite surprised at how well that went. And what they liked over what they didn't like, what went down so well. And what went down was tunes like Magica, you know, the real not happy hardcore, but groovy beats with uplifting synth lines. It was even a place in the Magica which I thought I was going to not play, because there's a bit right at the very end, like almost like a bridge, where there's a vibraphone playing really hard, quite intense, and I thought no one's going to understand that. And when that bit played, they started cheering, and I was like, wow. I thought it'd be over everyone's head. But it was so intense, they were just getting there, you know. So it was really good, really, really enjoyable. What struck me was the lack of formula in the tunes, the enjoyment. It was just, this is a great sample, that's all I need, and a beat. Instead of now where we can't have a single snare drum without 18 different types of processing on it, you know. And we never did that. All we did, that break sounds fine, that sample's really good, I've got some sub bass, I've done a tune. Whereas now, you know, we'd process the hell out of it until it's dynamically lost in just a mush of synths, you know, which doesn't appeal to me so much. But the old stuff does. Made me get itchy rave fingers, itchy hardcore fingers, up to the point where I've started collecting the old Hyperon samples, which is really quite a difficult thing to do, because as I listen to the samples, I want to make Hyperon tunes. In fact, I started collecting the samples and I didn't get very far, because the first thing I did was make up a little rave loop with some beats, and I thought, oh no, I have to stop now because that's a 12-hour job and this is midnight and I'm stopping now. So yeah, I played out. I'd like to do more of that. I think there is a market, because this music is like punk. It was the last great UK underground revolution, really. I mean, it was a revolution. It represented a threat. The press became aware of it. You couldn't go. There were people who died from ecstasy, regardless of the fact that for every person who dies from ecstasy, 30 people die on horses. That was immaterial. They just jumped on the bandwagon and said, this is bad, your children will do it, stop it. And so, you know, it's like that. Unfortunately, that is the way the media works. So, yeah, I'd like to get back into that. I'd like to get back into that immediacy, that joyful, youthful enthusiasm of ignorance that defined UK hardcore 91 to 94. Why do we have an emotional attachment to 91, 94 UK hardcore? It's, I touched on it earlier, it was the last great underground music scene. It represented such a threat to society. The police stopped it, didn't they? They said, we're going to change the law. They didn't just change the law, it was I can't remember what it was, Freedom to Party tried to oppose the Repetitive Beats Act or something. They tried to define it and stop it. In fact, all the raves that happened in East Anglia and stuff like that, when the old bill found out about it, they shut the roads by putting shale on them. I kid you not. So they dumped tons of shale so you couldn't drive to the events. It represented a big threat. It was like punk. The elderly people, adults of my age now, didn't understand it. They saw it as a threat. It was new, it was exciting, and all the kids were doing it. It was the only place to go. And we still drive around town and you'd see girls in kicker shoes and baggy jumpers and you go, they're ravers. You knew it from the uniform. It was like a secret little thing, because up until then, really, what we had in the big cities, you had electric funk and soul. That had happened. And out of the cities, you still had ska and you still had mods. That was still really prevalent. And all of a sudden, there was just this rave thing. You could go to parties with all your mates and have this great time that formed these bonds that are still tied today with your friends. The people that you knew from the early 90s are still your best friends, and the way that we interacted, the way we formed friendships in those environments and those raves, you can't recapture that. I can't do that now. I can't randomly meet some people and go out to some mad part of the country and rave. So what the emotional attachment comes from finding yourself and what you like, from within your friends and what they like, finding your place in life through music, through enjoyment, the shared enjoyment of music with your friends. These are the things that have brought us together, and that is the emotional attachment we have to music.